Good day, everyone. We are Group 6. I am Leslie Pinarido, and together with my groupmates, we'll be presenting a graph assigned to us. So today, we'll analyze the CO2 or the carbon dioxide emissions worldwide from 1850 to 2014 using the stock area chart covering the background, interpretation, and implications.
Our interpretation of the graph showing global carbon dioxide or CO2 emissions from 1850 to 2014, measured in billion metric tons. The graph is a stocked area graph which allows us to see both the total amount of CO2 emissions worldwide and the contributions of different regions over time. The horizontal axis represents the years from 1850 to 2014, while the vertical axis shows the amount of CO2s emitted. At the beginning of the graph, emissions are very low. This is because during the 1800s, most countries had limited industrial activity and relied mainly on agriculture and manual labor. As we move forward in time, we can see a gradual increase in emissions, particularly during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This period corresponds to the Industrial Revolution, when coal, oil, and other fossil fuels began to be widely used for factories, transportation, and electricity. The graph also shows that developed economies, especially the United States and the European Union, were the earliest and largest contributors to CO2 emissions. Their emissions rise steadily and remain significant throughout much of the time. This reflects their early industrialization and high levels of production and consumption. In contrast, emissions from developing countries such as China and India remain relatively low until the late 20th century. However, in the years approaching 2014, their emissions increased rapidly. This sharp rise indicates rapid industrial growth, population increase, and higher energy demand in these countries. Overall, the graph shows a clear upward trend, with global emissions surpassing 30 billion metric tons by 2014. From a mathematical point of view, this pattern resembles exponential growth, where increases become larger and faster over time.
Now that we understand the graph, we can discuss its implication. One major implication is that human activities are primary driver of the rising CO emissions. The increase in emissions closely follows industrialization, urbanization, and the growth use of fossil fuels. This suggests that economic growth, while beneficial, has significant environmental cost. Another important implication is the issue of global responsibility. Developed countries have contributed the most to historic emissions, while developing countries are now contributing more as they grow economically. This raises questions about fairness, cooperation in the addressing climate change, since not all countries contribute equally in the past. The graph also implies that if the current trends continue, future emissions will continue to rise, leading to more consequences such as global warming, melting ice caps, rising sea levels, and extreme weather events. These environmental effects can also lead to social economic problems, including food shortage and health risks. This graph demonstrates how mathematical tools such as data representation, trend analysis, and modeling are essential in understanding real-world problems. Government and scientists use graphs like this to predict future outcomes and create policies that aim to reduce emissions. Lastly, the graph implies the urgent need for sustainable development, including the use of renewable energy sources, energy efficiency, and international cooperation. By applying mathematical analysis to real-world data, that we can make informed decisions that balance progress with environmental responsibility.
In conclusion, the graph shows that carbon dioxide emissions have risen a lot over the years because of growing industries and energy use around the world. At first, developed countries produce most of the emissions, but today developing countries are also big contributors. This growing amount of pollution harms our planet and leads to problems like climate change. The graph reminds us that all countries need to work together, use cleaner energy, and find better ways to protect the environment for the future.